What truly defines our worth? Is it the treasures we own or the way we treat others? This timeless tale will make you wonder, do we see the value in others as clearly as we see it in gold? In the kingdom of Seri, two merchants set out on a journey, their carts full of pots, pans, and ornaments to sell. Though they were in the same business, their hearts couldn't have been more different. One was consumed by greed, his mind always scheming for ways to take more than he gave. To him, life was a contest, and wealth was the only prize that mattered. The other was kind and honest, believing that fairness and respect for others were just as important as profit. For him, true wealth was found in building trust and goodwill. One morning, they reached the bustling city of Andhapura. The merchants agreed to divide the streets between them to avoid competing for customers. The greedy merchant eagerly chose the richer neighborhoods, where grand homes with decorated gates promised wealthier buyers. The kind merchant, unbothered by appearances, took the simpler, quieter streets where ordinary folk lived modestly. What neither knew was that their paths would lead them to the same small house and the same priceless test of character. At the far edge of the city, there stood a humble, crumbling house. It was home to an old grandmother and her young granddaughter. Once they had lived in wealth. Their family counted among the city's prosperous traders, but time had stolen their fortune, leaving behind only memories of better days. Now they had little, only a few pots, some worn furniture, and an old tarnished bowl that lay forgotten in a dusty corner. Neither the grandmother nor the granddaughter realized that the bowl was made of pure gold, its value hidden beneath years of grime and neglect. That day, the greedy merchant's voice echoed through the street as he called out his wares. Hearing his cries, the young girl's eyes lit up with excitement. She ran to her grandmother and begged for a simple bangle or comb. The grandmother sighed, her heart heavy with the reality of their poverty. "We have no money to offer," she told the girl gently, though her tone was full of regret. The girl's gaze shifted to the dusty corner where the old bowl sat forgotten. "What about that?" she asked. "We don't use it anymore. Maybe we can trade it for something." Though hesitant, the grandmother agreed. After all, it was just an old, useless bowl. She called the merchant into their home, handed him the bowl, and asked if he might trade it for a small bangle to make her granddaughter happy. The merchant took the bowl, turning it over in his hands. As he scratched its surface with his fingernail, he saw the unmistakable gleam of gold beneath the grime. His heart raced. Here was a treasure, worth far more than the combined value of everything in his cart. But greed clouded his thoughts. He couldn't bear the idea of giving them anything in return. Feigning disinterest, he tossed the bowl carelessly back onto the ground. "This bowl is worthless," he muttered, already thinking of how he could profit from it later. Without another word, he left the house, leaving the grandmother and granddaughter humiliated and disappointed. The girl watched him go, her eyes brimming with tears. Not long after, the kind merchant entered their street. His call carried a warmth that drew the granddaughter to the door once more. Encouraged by his gentle demeanor, she asked her grandmother to try again. This merchant seemed different, she insisted, and perhaps he would treat them with kindness. The grandmother, though wary, decided to give him a chance. Though still skeptical, the grandmother agreed. She invited the merchant into their home and handed him the same tarnished bowl. She explained that they had little else to offer and hoped he might accept it in exchange for something small. The merchant took the bowl gently, turning it over in his hands. As he studied it, he noticed its weight and the faint gleam beneath the dirt. His breath caught. He realized it was made of pure gold, a treasure worth more than he had ever held before. But unlike the greedy merchant, his heart wasn't overcome by greed. Instead, he felt a deep sense of responsibility. These women had trusted him, and he couldn't betray that trust. Gently, he explained to the grandmother and granddaughter the true value of their possession. The grandmother stared at him in shock, unable to speak. Could it really be true? She told the merchant about the earlier visitor, the man who had claimed the bowl was worthless. The kind merchant smiled gently and said, "Its value has always been there, but not everyone can see what truly matters. Some see only what they want to see." He emptied his cart, offering the women all the goods he had brought with him. Then he reached into his pouch and gave them 500 silver coins, everything he carried. "This is all I can offer you today," he said. "May it bring you some comfort and security." The grandmother and granddaughter were overwhelmed with gratitude. For the first time in years, they felt a glimmer of hope. The kind merchant, knowing the greedy merchant might return, quickly packed his few remaining belongings and made his way to the riverbank. There he hired a boat and began crossing the Telavaha River, eager to leave the city behind. When the greedy merchant heard about the exchange, his fury burned hotter than the midday sun. He stormed back to the grandmother's house, demanding to see the bowl. But the grandmother stood firm, her voice calm but resolute. "The merchant who took the bowl treated us with honesty and respect," she told him. "You, who saw its value and tried to deceive us, have no claim to it." Her words struck deep, but instead of regret, the greedy merchant felt only envy. Determined to recover what he believed should be his, he rushed to the riverbank. There he saw the kind merchant's boat drifting farther and farther away. Desperation surged through him, and he shouted at the boatman to turn back. But the kind merchant, seated calmly in the boat, simply looked back once, his gaze steady and peaceful. The greedy merchant's rage grew unbearable. His frustration consumed him, and as he stood by the riverbank, his body could take no more. Overwhelmed by anger and envy, he collapsed to the ground. His heart, heavy with hatred, gave out. His life ended not because of the actions of others, but because of the poison in his own soul. Meanwhile, the kind merchant continued his journey. He used the golden bowl's value to build a life of generosity, helping those in need and spreading kindness wherever he went. People remembered him not for his fortune, but for his fairness and compassion. To him, the bowl was not a prize, but a chance to do good in a world that often needed it. The tale of the two merchants spread far and wide, teaching an enduring lesson. Greed consumes everything it touches, but honesty and kindness leave a legacy that grows. As the Buddha once said, "A heart filled with greed knows no peace, but a heart that gives finds true joy." So ask yourself, when you look at the people and choices in your life, do you see only what you can take, or do you see what you can give? Like the golden bowl, the answer may be hidden, waiting to shine.